actually not going to start with the pledge tonight. It is my pleasure to watch as we have one returning trustee sworn in and two new trustees being sworn in tonight. So I'd like to hand it over to Judy, our deputy clerk.
Okay.
Picture's perfect.
If you could just raise your right hand, please. You will now read your oath.
I, Ben Patton, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village trustee according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. So they get to officially sign in the book. At this point,
That's what you're for.
just so everyone knows, we have two agendas tonight. We have our regular meeting, which we're basically going to do about one line and then jump over to our organizational meeting. And then we'll jump back to the agenda in our regular meeting. And while they're doing this, trustees, a couple changes on the agenda to the regular meeting. First off, there will be no executive session tonight, which I knew would be exciting. I want to start them
I
light.
can't believe that.
I know.
Really?
I know, and really. Well, just wait until we mention the meeting when you guys know about the extra meeting. And there's two old business items that I'm gonna have discussed tonight, and I forgot to get them to Ann earlier. The first is the discussions with Andy regarding the assessments, and the second is an update on the parking situation that Andy has been looking into. There's Andy's over there somewhere.
Terry's Law?
Yeah, that's the one. So at this point, I am looking for a motion to open our 2018-2019 organizational meeting.
Motion.
Brian, I need a second.
Second.
Bobby, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. We are officially in the 2018-19 organizational meeting. I'd now like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we think about those who have gone before us. Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Okay. Trustee Lewis. Trustee Pine. Trustee Bushner.
Still here.
Trustee Ryan.
Here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
And Trustee O'Malley. All present.
All right, thank you.
Also present is Village Attorney. Go, Chris.
All right, I'm going to read through the organizational minutes and appointments and such. I would like to ask that we wait until the end to take on a motion to accept them all. Once we've taken on the motion, we can do some discussion, because I actually have a couple questions and updates and things that we'll discuss, and we'll each take those individually. So we're in the organizational meeting agenda right now. Here is everything related to meetings for the next year that we'll be looking to pass tonight. A tentative agenda for each meeting of the Board of Trustees shall be prepared by the village clerk and given to the mayor and trustees in each department head on the Friday before the meeting, if the mayor actually does what he's supposed to. Business as a regular meeting shall be as follows: call to order, pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, roll call, correspondence and announcements, treasurer's reports, minutes, police report, code enforcement report, clerk's report, community service report. And again, if you guys have any notes or suggestions on changes, because I have a couple, we come back to that in a minute. Then we'll go to people to be heard, monthly committee reports, old business, and new business. Meetings shall be conducted in accordance to parliamentary procedures with reference to the revised edition of Robert's Rules of Order. Meetings will be held on the second Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. unless otherwise advertised. In the list of committees below, the first name on each committee is the chairperson and has the responsibility for the operation of said department. The other trustee or trustees named will act as advisors to the chairperson. It shall be the duty of the chairperson to follow up. Currently, this says to follow up the resolutions of the board. I have a change for that I'll suggest in a moment. Pertaining to their department, and see that they are properly executed. In the case of an emergency, the committee chair shall notify the mayor or deputy mayor at once. The tentative list of committees for code enforcement: Kevin O'Malley and Robert Ryan. Communications: Brian Bushner and Ben Patton. Court: Robert Ryan and Kevin O'Malley. Dog control: Robert Ryan. Fair housing officer, we will have to have that named. Finance: Ben Patton and Vanessa Lewis. And Vanessa, I'll come back and ask because I couldn't remember if you had wanted that or not.
Yeah, I talked to Denise, we're good.
Okay, great, thank you. Highway Department: Robert Ryan and Kevin O'Malley. Parks and Grounds: Brian Bushner and Vanessa Lewis. Planning and Zoning Liaison: Craig Pine. Public Safety, which is the police: Robert Ryan and Kevin O'Malley. Public Works for Water: Brian Bushner and Craig Pine. Public Works for Sewer: Kevin O'Malley and Craig Pine. Recycling Solid Waste: Vanessa Lewis, and I know Ben had mentioned being interested in that as well, so we'll come back and then try to get that added in. Streetlights: Robert Ryan and Kevin O'Malley. And a change: we had marketing and events as one thing last year with Brian and Kevin doing it together. We've separated it, so for marketing, Brian Bushner and Vanessa Lewis, and with events, Kevin O'Malley and Vanessa Lewis. The following appointments are 1 year. They were 2-year appointments last year. They're 1 year this year. Village Treasurer is Denise McMahon. Deputy Village Clerk Judy Vandekar. Superintendent of Public Works Neil Stoll. Wastewater Treatment Operator 1A, Ken Holbrook, which is provisional as he's still working to finish the certification. And Assistant Wastewater Treatment Operator Keith Pierce, also provisional. And the Emergency Wastewater Operator part-time is Dan Merrills Jr. That is a DEC requirement as we're waiting for the 2 operators to get their certifications. I think it's actually Ken's in particular is one that we're waiting on. Sewer Inspector Ken Holbrook. Assistant Sewer Inspector Keith Pierce. Water Treatment Operator Francis Herbert, and Assistant Water Treatment Operator Josh Magasano. The following appointments are offered as 2-year appointments: Village Clerk Ann Borns, Registrar Ann Borns, Deputy Registrar Judy Vandekar, and Sub-Registrar Denise McMahon. Acting Village Assessor Tony Rice, Acting Village Justice Harold McClellan, Court Clerk Holly Cross, Deputy Superintendent of Public Works Bruce Rawlings, Dog Control Officer Nancy Quell, Transfer Station Operator Charles Preble. We don't have anything for Fiscal Auditor now. We'll talk about that in a moment. Building Inspector Code Enforcement Mark Serdam, Police Matron Denise Davick, and Police Matron Janet Davendonis. Right now on the Zoning Board, we only have 2. Aaron Bazinski is the chair and Dennis Casey. This is required to have 5 members, but we have some information on that we'll get to in a minute, so we'll come back to that. And the Planning Board, Gail Leva as the chair, Sandra Sargood, Donald Bradley, Deb Alter, and Shane Hathaway. The Nuisance Law Appeal Board would be 1 member from Planning, 1 member from Zoning, and 1 village resident. We will have to revisit that and set that in the future. Workplace Violence Committee is Maggie Casey, Mark Serdam, and Bernie Davick. And Ethics Committee is Maggie Kinney, Bernie Davick, and Sandra Sargood, excuse me. And to finish this off before I take... Actually, no, I should take the motion for the committee now and discuss that, right?
Okay.
All right. So at this point, I'm looking to have a motion to adopt all of these.
Motion.
Second.
Ben, second Brian. All right, so discussion. Let me go through my changes, questions, modifications first. Back to the list of committees where the trustees are named. I spoke with Ben last night, and he expressed interest also in doing recycling and solid waste. So I would like to. Do you guys care who takes the lead and who's the second on that?
No, it doesn't matter to me.
You want to leave it as is?
We work together, it's fine.
That's kind of what I figured would happen, so that's good. In that case, I'm looking for a motion to add Ben Lewis into recycling and solid waste.
Motion.
Or Ben Patton, what'd I say? Ben Lewis?
Ben Lewis.
That's working together.
And all of a sudden, I've merged you.
That happened fast.
Well, that's a good way to get the first meeting.
There we go. Yeah, looking for a motion to bring in Ben Patton. Bobby, thank you. And second?
Second.
All right, Brian, any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. What does the Fair Housing Officer do specifically?
If people are trying to purchase homes, if there's an issue, the fair housing officer can be called in. If there are issues with apartments, or issues with landlords,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll run that off and we'll see.
Okay, we can always set that
Do
next
that.
meeting. We could always set that next meeting.
That's not something that the building inspector
No.
does?
No,
No.
totally different.
Totally separate?
No,
Who was appointed to this last year?
Karen.
Oh,
Karen, but I don't know if anything
Maybe
ever
she'll
came
do it
up.
again.
Really pretty much just the title and name mostly only.
Yeah,
Looking for funding, they want to see that you have a.
there was one situation last year, but I just worked directly with the individual and some other folks, so 'cause they reached out to me. That's fine. You want to do that?
Sure.
All right. In that case, looking for a motion to put Vanessa in as a fair housing officer. Motion. Thank you, Craig. Second, Ben. Should I put her as a Vanessa Lewis or Vanessa Patton? How do you want to do this? Vanessa Lewis. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Our motion carries. Thank you, Vanessa. The paragraph right above that, where it talks about the first name on each committee is the chairperson and has the responsibility for the operation of said departments. The other trustee or trustees named will act as advisors to the chairperson. I'd like to change the following sentence slightly. It shall be the duty of the chairperson to follow up, and then the changes with motions to the board pertaining to their departments, as opposed to the resolutions ? Of. So I would just like to make those changes with motions too. Do I need a motion to make that change? I need a motion to make
Motion
that
for the
change.
Would you
motions?
read it again?
Yeah, so the sentence at the end of the third line, it shall be the duty of the chairperson to follow up, strike the next three words, and it would be changed to with motions to the board pertaining to their departments. So I'm looking for a motion to make those changes. Brian, did you make the motion?
Yeah, I guess I did.
Thank you, Brian, for guessing to make that. I need a second.
Second.
All right, thank you, Craig. Any discussion on that? Is that all right?
No, makes sense.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, carries. Thank you. On the second page, the dog control officer, it's not a point, it's just a point to be made. And Andy, you may want to clarify with this. We're working on an agreement.
We're working on a written contract with the animal control officer for Department of Agriculture and Markets.
Okay, that's all. It's just
Will it be the same individual? Or it'll be...
It is
Yep.
right now,
Okay.
yes. Yes, it will be. And we'll have that drafted for your review at your next meeting.
all right. Thank you. Just another one of those nice things to get squared away and all set.
Wonderful.
Now, in terms of the zoning and planning board, Ann and our Denise or Judy or someone in the office called NICOM to ask them about the situation we have where the zoning board of appeals is really important, and we are supposed to have 5 members and we only have 2 right now. What they discovered, and Andy, you may want to voice off on this. I meant to give you this heads up earlier, so my apology for pinch hitting right now for you.
We'll give it a whirl.
Is that NICOM stated that the ZBA, the zoning board, is required, but the planning board is not required.
That is correct.
So we could actually move the planning board into the zoning board into one and call that whole thing the zoning board if those
No.
individuals.
No. What the law requires is that when you have a zoning law,
Hmm.
you must have a separate and distinct zoning board of appeals, so that if there's any need to interpret or to seek a variance from the zoning law, that's the board that hears that.
Okay.
We do need a separate zoning board of appeals, and while it's set for 5, you must have at least a minimum of 3 members to act, to have that quorum.
Do we have to have a planning board if we have a zoning board? Because that's what NICOM suggested is they technically don't.
You technically do not need a planning board, but the planning functions generally are not done by the zoning board. That has separate, a zoning board has separate legal functions, and those are to interpret the zoning code, hear any appeals from any order of the building department or any other officer of the town, or to address variance requests, use variance or area variances. A planning board does the planning functions, which is generally site plan review, subdivision, special permits. You don't have a planning board, generally those functions are done by your village board or your town board. I'm not sure this board wants to do that. I would certainly recommend that you get a minimum of 3 members on your zoning board
Okay.
and have at least a minimum of, you have a 5-member planning board?
Yes.
Yeah, so a minimum of 3 on the planning board. They'll be able to conduct business. It sounds like you have 5 members on your planning board.
And 2 on the
and
zoning.
2 on the zoning board.
Yeah.
You could certainly approach one to see if they'll take over the duties of a zoning board member.
Okay.
so that you could at least have legally functioning boards.
Okay.
You can't have your zoning board performing your planning functions.
And I know none of us can be on these boards because they have to be a separate independent board, but
Right.
can somebody be on both boards?
No,
Okay, so they have to be one or the other,
correct.
just to clarify.
All right, so I guess we should just basically prove this as is and revisit that, and I guess we'll have to discuss
Yeah.
before the next meeting
Yeah.
with the planning board members.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, I think that was it for my things I wanted to revise or ask about.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is a member of the town board able to sit on one of these boards or not?
So a member of the town board of the
Yeah.
town of Hoosick,
Correct.
sitting on a village board?
Yes.
Interesting issue. I think the answer is yes. That raises the issue of compatibility of offices. I
Okay.
don't think those offices are incompatible. I can certainly check that for you.
A name just popped into my head. I'm not gonna release it right now, but I'm just someone that I thought of that might be interested in maybe doing that. And I'd like to, if it's okay, I'd like to talk to him, but I won't if we can't do that.
I'll look
so.
at that
Okay.
and I'll circulate it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. One other small tweak I wanted to throw out there was in the order of the regular meeting on the first page, throwing minutes up earlier, just because it sort of made sense to me sequentially. After we do the roll call, we do the minutes there to get the minutes out of the way, and then move on to correspondence announcements. Does anybody have an opinion on that either way?
I agree, but can I also suggest another change to that now that you
Sure.
brought it? I know that Neil comes, the chief comes,
Mhm.
we have a lot of people, different, sewer department, water department, everybody, they kind of have to wait quite a while through the meeting. Is there a way to move all the reports for these guys who've all worked all day toward the top of the agenda so that they're not here
Yeah.
deep into the meeting?
Yeah.
Judy as well, and Denise, yeah.
You know what we could do, which is always the time-consuming one, is the mayor updates when I have them. We could put in a spot for that as an optional thing, but after all the reports.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, you like
Yeah.
that idea?
You like that?
So let me write that down, and then I'll go as
It's like call to order.
I'll go to I'll look for a motion for these changes in a minute. Anything else you guys want to change in the sequence? All right, then I guess I'm looking for a motion to move minutes up below roll call and to add a mayor update portion after the reports.
Motion?
Thank you, Ben.
Second.
Second, Brian. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Thank you. And unless there are any other changes, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Denise.
What's that? Oh, I gotta. All right. Let me. All right, then let me. Should I approve the appointees first?
Can
All right. Let me look for a motion to approve the. Yeah.
The fiscal auditor,
Yes.
that really pretty much is whoever wants to be. It previously was, I think, Paul Haynes,
Mm-hmm.
who's on that board, he did it, free gratis, I would say, or whatever. It can be anyone on the board.
Okay.
It's just kind of like an overview at the end of the year. Come in and pull bank
Check.
statements, vouchers, receipts, just make sure the details there, the backup, to follow
Okay.
the cash management policy.
Okay.
So typically, it would be one or two or both for financial people.
Okay. Ben, Vanessa,
Yeah.
does that sound all right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion to put.
Mayor, do we have an open motion already for approving the
appointment.
appointees?
No, we haven't. We haven't set that up motion yet.
I feel like somebody...
I was asking for it, and then Denise asked.
No, I mean earlier I thought
No,
we did.
it's not
Okay.
really. No, so we're not. I don't think we're there yet.
Mention that, 'cause it's an-
So I guess I'm looking for a motion to add Ben and Vanessa into the fiscal auditor spot. Bobby, thank you. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. Any further discussion on that?
Is that actually her first name? Because that's his wife.
That's Missy's
Oh, I'm
name.
sorry.
It should be Melissa.
We gotta fix that.
Yeah.
It's not...
Davik.
That's Craig's
No,
wife.
no, it's Melissa.
Wait, what?
The police matron is Melissa Davik, not Denise.
Not-
I mean, Denise
not-
might do it.
That was Craig's wife's maiden name.
All right, we'll fix that in a minute. The motion right now is to add Ben and Vanessa. All in
To
favor?
fiscal audit.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, looking for a motion to fix Davik's name to Melissa Davik,
Let's see.
police patron.
Oh, yes.
Motion.
Craig. Second.
Second.
Bobby. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Any other changes before we approve all of the?
Why don't we appoint Denise Stavick to the zoning board, and you can tell her when you get home.
All right. In that case, no, we are currently in a motion to. No, we were in a motion to. Yeah, we were in a motion.
We have an
to,
open
so-
motion.
Yeah, the open motion that we're in is to approve these. So,
Okay.
we've done all of our modifications. Any other discussion? Then I guess we're looking to vote on this. All in favor of approving all of the appointees as stated?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, motion carries. Last couple bits to approve. Last few policies on the last page. The procurement policy, for emergency purchasing, all officers, agents, and department heads for the Village of Hoosick Falls must first obtain the approval of the village mayor and/or committee chairman of that department for any purchase in excess of $1,500. In the case of an emergency, the mayor, deputy mayor may approve such purchase, provided that the approval of such purchase could not wait until the next regular meeting. If a purchase is made under this emergency condition, the purchaser and the chief fiscal officer will inform the village board of such a purchase at its next meeting. In any event, the purchase will still be required to follow the guidelines set forth in the procurement policy. Hiring of personnel. All salaried personnel receive no overtime and may be called to work at any time by the chairman of the committee or by the mayor or deputy mayor. Salaried personnel are on call 7 days a week and are required to work regular hours pertaining to the work week of the village. The benefits are not provided to part-time employees. All vacation time must be used by the end of each fiscal year. No vacation time will be held over. Overtime must be approved by the committee chairman or the mayor. Official newspaper, Eastwick Press. We had been with the Eastwick Press for, I think, decades. And when there was a blip in Eastwick Press service, we switched to the Eagle. But I think my recommendation is to switch back to the Eastwick Press. And the office is good with that. Official bank will be Key Bank. So at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve, not the appointments because we've already done that, procurement policy, emergency purchasing, hiring of personnel, and overtime, and to close the organizational meeting. We haven't actually made the motion by those people, so that's old stuff. So I'm looking for that motion.
You would like me to make the motion?
Vanessa.
Second.
And Ben. Okay. Any discussion or modifications or changes you want to make on any of that? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Oh, yes.
And just the question is here from the last time we did this. The question we discussed was, would we have two local newspapers? We just sort of left it and discussed it, but the basic gist is it's ideal to have just one to make sure we do the requirements, but we can and often do also advertise with the Eagle. It's just an added expense, but NICOM recommends just having one, and we have the one now. So that's just why that's there. Okay, so at this point, with that motion, we close the organizational meeting, so that agenda is done. And we are moving back to the regular meeting.
Same roll call.
And we have to have a roll call for the regular meeting as well.
Same as
Oh, same roll call. Great. Fantastic. All right, correspondences and announcements. We have a whole bunch of them.
Did the chief need to go, you said? To his
Oh,
report
yeah.
So we could depart?
Is Bob out there? Could you get him for me? Bob has some business to take care of, so with your permission, I'd like to move the police reports up to this point, and we'll delay correspondences. Is that all right, board? All right. As soon as he gets back here. You're up.
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
We just got a bunch of stuff that's happening here. This is for the 2018 report, and I just want to point out that we just revised this a little bit. So you'll see the March column, you'll see a February column. The March, for total costs for March 2018 were 96. For February, they were 98. Total costs for 2018 to date are 290. Last year was 320. Total arrests for the March 2018 were 5. For February, there were 9. And for this time last year, this date for 2018 was a total of 26 arrests. In 2017, this time was 28. Those calls range from accidents. There was 8 sex offense registries of 1, larcenies of 4, criminal mischiefs of 1, Check and welfare were 14, domestics were 14, harassments were 3. There was 1 landlord-tenant dispute, 12 EMS calls, 3 burglaries, 3 mental health calls, 4 alarm drops, 3 lockouts, 2 lost found property, 4 vehicle and traffic complaints. There was 1 assault, 1 trespass, 1 drug investigation, 1 suspicious vehicle. Total calls handled outside the village for the month of March were 8. In February there was 5. And those arrests that were made for March was 3 were vehicle and traffic, 1 for driving while intoxicated, and 1 burglary arrest. 3 calls that were handled at the school are a result of the officers being assigned to the school in the morning. We've got great communications going on with the school in the morning. There's some situations that have occurred in the school that was brought to the officers' attention. We had to step in, do some quick investigation. Most of those calls were turned over. 1 call was turned over to the state police that came up and handled it. The other 2 calls we were able to handle the situation ourselves. Again, we're receiving phone calls and complaints in reference to individuals that are calling residents, informing them they're from the IRS. Please, just hang up on them. Don't, and if you feel that threatened, by all means contact us and we will in return, take a report. There's very little we can do. Based on that, it is being reported into to the state. We tell them about it, but a lot of these calls we've tracked down in New York City. New York City is not going to go to this apartment to go check on it. All we can tell the people is just to hang up the phone on them and ignore it.
There's
The IRS is not going to come out and arrest you.
There's also calls going around that from state police requesting money for stuff. They do not call.
State police doesn't do that.
No.
The only I think the sheriff's departments, they have a program that they do for camps. They might be doing it, but we don't do it. The state police don't do it, and like I said, the sheriff's union doesn't do it. It's for the state sheriff's association that might do it. The other thing that Neil and I was brought to your attention about this parade route for the autism.
Yes.
We have 28.
Yes, that's.
We've got some big concerns here. They originally wanted us to approve. This is going on at 7:30 at night. We're going to have to bring additional manpower in for this because they anticipate close to 50 people. And they originally wanted this to start here at the park, go down around the sandbar, go up on these side streets, back up on Main Street, back up on Church Street. 7:30 at night, it's going to be dark.
Yeah.
They've got glow sticks that they're going to be using, and they're telling us that they're going to be lighting up areas with water bottles and glow sticks. And I know you said it to them to leave it up to Neil and I.
Yeah, the last thing we did was we just basically made the motion, approve it once you guys approved or agreed on the route. But
I've expressed my concerns to them, and today she agreed to what I was saying. I think we have to keep it at the original route, where it starts up on Munso, works its way back through, then back onto Maine. The only big concern is 3.1 miles puts it back out by the
Cemetery?
is there any way we could put in the road next to the ice rink? Maybe use a extra square around the ice rink. I mean, it's not on the road if we do that, but
Griffin and Rogers.
yeah, go around the ice rink.
But
maybe,
it's not up the hill.
Yeah, just not up the hill part.
Well, right, because she says the runners don't want to do hills.
Right, no, that makes sense.
And I understand, but runners, this is at night. This isn't in the daytime. I'm really concerned about it because, like I said,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have 5 officers here, which is fine, and I'm going to have extra assistance from the fire department.
If we could include Griffin and Rogers, or not Rogers all the way up, Rogers for some of it, or Griffin and
Why can't you do
What?
do Barton and
Barton.
and Griffin? rather
Barton and
than
Griffin. That could
eliminate-
probably take out that extra distance where they have to go outside of the village to the graveyard.
You could actually go up Barton and on the other side of the skating rink. There's a path that goes all around by the skating rink.
Yeah.
We bring
Alright.
you over to Griffin Avenue. It's a walkway.
I wonder if there's a way we could sort of chart that out, walk that out, and see how that would change the path and make some modifications to it.
The streetlight committee should probably go out and clipboard.
Thanks, Brian.
You could have put me on there and ditched it.
I'm gonna call Gail tomorrow. Neil and I will have one more.
Try to get Barton and Griffin used, because that would be pretty, especially because they're on this side of the road anyway.
And eliminate going from, you're talking from like
You wouldn't even have,
Rogers to out to the Catholic cemetery and back, right?
you wouldn't even have to go probably to the Lions
I
Church
don't
in
wanna,
that.
I'm not trying to be hard on it.
No, I think you're trying to be safe.
Trying to
No,
be safe.
no.
It's fantastic that we're doing such a thing. But, I think 7:30 at night.
Yep.
And we may have a little bit of a problem.
Yep.
And I even expressed about walkers and children in this, and she's telling me that she doesn't believe any of that's gonna be happening. So we gotta try to contain this as quick as we can.
That was their idea, was to do it late, just sort of a different
No,
approach
for
to
safety reasons, I think you're absolutely
And
100% correct.
I think if this event is something that's repeated, I think we got to make sure we do it right the first time. So I really think going up and down Barton and up and down, what's the other road there?
Barton to Griffin.
Griffin.
And the path through the athletic field, although I don't think it's had gravel laid down since Joe Bruno was still in charge of stuff back in the day, but it goes up and behind where the rink has that kind of
Right.
toward the
Yeah.
golf
It
course,
goes right
all the way
next to
down
the
by
rink.
the firehouse. Yeah,
Yes.
so it
Goes-
actually is.
And they could do a couple loops if they had to, if
Yeah.
they short the distance between the like Griffin all the way out to the cemetery and back. You could probably do a couple
Yeah, 'cause
loops
it goes
around
along
there.
the edge of the rink, up and
Yeah.
then down, and
So with the board's permission, whatever we come up with is what is gonna be agreed.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you're not
Agree
gonna come
100%.
back
And
with
you've
what's gonna
heard
happen.
from us. We want to use these roads because they're going to be lit anyway, and they'll take them out of the
And the
area.
last thing I just want to bring up is this back on March 26th, and I want to acknowledge you, officer, on this because you did an outstanding job. We were requested at 12:30 at night to assist the state police and sheriff's department with missing elderly person on Hill Road.
Oh yeah.
We located her at 4:30 in the morning. It was a cold night. The officer did a great job on it, but they had units coming up with dogs and such, and the officer was persistent, stayed with it, and Officer Swanson located her at 4:30 in the morning, and we were able to get back. She was in this is the second time this has happened, where she's wandered away. So I think, he called me, I was on my way up here, called me back, and he said how he found her was she had gotten sick. He found, it's kind of,
Yeah.
found a puddle in the ground and said, hey, she was sick, and then picked up from there and was able to locate her. She had gotten into someone's car, and he was able to locate her in the car. So I just, it was a great job by my officer, as well as state police and sheriff's department.
Yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge it.
All right.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. You guys- Any other questions, or are looking for motion to approve the police report?
Motion. Second.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
don't know who that was with the first. Ben, and then second Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right. Do you want me to jump to the 6:30 opening, since that's what we had advertised?
Well, yeah. See you
Okay. Before we do the correspondence announcements, I apologize for jumping around, but we had advertised this, so we need to make sure that we do it as advertised. I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing pertaining to the 2018-2019 tentative budgets.
motion.
Second.
I'll give that to Brian and Ben second. I guess I'd take the vote and then we just briefly address it, right? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are now opening the public hearing at 6:34-ish for the record. We have copies of the budget available. Do we have a couple here right now?
Yes.
We do. Okay, we have copies of the budget here right now. You can get them anytime in the village office. We're working to get those online on our website as well. One of the things I wanted to do this year, and I've already spoken to the trustees and to Andy about this, is to have some extra time to look at this. I had hoped to sit down with the trustees in pairs so as to not violate the quorum rule, to just go through this in greater detail and discuss some of the things that we came out with and some of our findings. And I wasn't able to because I had my wisdom teeth removed over break. Yes, my Easter was lame. No one around, nothing going on, and I had a lot of applesauce and chicken soup. So with that being said, we're already looking to have another board meeting in 2 weeks on the 24th of April, and that's where I would like to discuss this further in detail in a board setting and adopt it, assuming that's what we have to do. And according to the village law requirements of a budget schedule, that works out.
It does work. It needs to be approved, adopted before May 1st.
All right. Okay. So I just want to mention that. At this point in the hearing, if anyone has anything to say in the people to be heard section on the budget, now is the time. Would anyone like to speak in regards to the budget? What's that?
The budget wasn't online, so you couldn't see.
All right, we have copies here. If you want to look over it, you want to pass one back, and you can look over it now. It'll remain open for the next half hour. It has to stay open for. So we're gonna move on with the meeting, and if anybody has a question about it, just raise your hand, and we'll jump ship right to you. But that's sort of how public hearings go. And since I do see some students here, and I should have been explaining this earlier, the organizational meeting stuff that we went through is basically the underlying structure of how this works, and we discuss it and improve it in a public setting because that's how government is supposed to work, and that's how the laws of government are set up. So I just want to mention that earlier. All right.
And there, I also said
Yes.
after an hour, if they pass papers, I'll
Oh,
for them
okay.
so they can
Yep.
not be here till 10 o'clock.
I don't think we'll be here till 10 o'clock. Anne's like panicking on that.
Sorry.
All right, so
9:58. Be here.
Just as a quick general summary on the budget, can I see this for just a minute? If we spend everything in our budget, we will be in the hole. In particular, in water revenue, that was the most startling thing that we discovered as going through this. And this was my first time going through a budget and in detail. It was quite something. When we had approved the budget last year, we had made some big steps and gains in salaries. What we had discovered, and this was all before I'd gotten here, was that a lot of our positions within our employees that we have were underpaid, in some cases very underpaid, as compared with other municipalities of roughly our size and stature. So last year, in a lot of ways, I think we jumped up sort of the halfway point between where we had been and what the average was. The goal had been this year to bump up the rest of the way. That was something I had wanted to do but was unable to do, and remain under the tax cap when I had wanted to remain under the tax cap. So we basically, I think in every situation, went half of the half, which is 25%, which means from where we were at the beginning of last fiscal year, before we made the changes, we're going to be up to the 75% of what the general average were for the various positions. So that was something that I wanted to make sure we did as best we could. I had mentioned before the water revenue was low. We did a little bit of data digging, and what we discovered is in terms of the metered usage of our water, the metered usage dropped significantly. I want to say it was like 10 or 12%. But it wasn't because of village resident usage. Even when we looked at, once there was the initial drop-off when the PFOA situation kind of came to light in 2014 and 15, since that point, the village usage, residents and village usage, has actually been pretty much consistent over the past few years, even when the GAC filtration system came online. The big change was in our industrial usage when the two Cinco Main locations switched to some sort of water reusing system. Their usage dropped significantly. And along with that, obviously, was the revenue that dropped to that. So that is something that we are going to have to look into over the course of the next several months, and to try to figure out what we can and need to do. Just knowing that, when we figure out what our budget is based on the tax revenue, water revenue, sewer revenue, we're not going to have the water revenue that we have had in the past, because the usage, in particular from the Liberty Street was the biggest user, but the McCaffrey Street as well is so significantly lower that this is just the new norm for us. It was not a fun thing to notice, but it is what it is. So we are definitely going to be in a situation where I certainly don't want to spend everything that we have budgeted for The general fund and sewer fund were actually pretty good. With the water fund, if we spend everything there, we're going to have a significant shortfall, which we can maintain for several years, but not nearly enough. So that's my general summary on the budget. And again, for those of you guys who have a copy and are looking over it right now, if you have any initial questions on this or board any questions on this, we can certainly discuss it now. The public hearing will stay open for at least 25 minutes. So any other questions or comments, thoughts from people to be heard section on this? Okay, it will remain open, so if you have a question or comment, raise your hand. We're going to move back to the correspondence and announcements section. And we have a bunch of them. First off, reminder, Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day will be held at the town of Stephentown Transfer Station this year from 8 a.m. to noon. The number is there, 687-1018, or visit www.urswama.org.
Do you have a date?
There's no date listed there. I feel like I have it in my calendar though. That is a valid point.
It will be held.
It will in fact be held.
In Stephentown.
What were you thinking, Judy?
Take your waste.
It's on Earth Day.
Vanessa, that's something.
Of April?
Yeah,
We should, but we only just got appointed.
That's valid. That's valid.
April.
the sassy end of the table.
I'll search in my email in a minute. I'll come back to that. I'll look for that. The Relay for Life Walk Run will be held on April 21st. A reminder that the Town of Hoosick Little League Parade will be held on April 28th, beginning at 8 a.m. Another reminder, what we were discussing before, the Kiwanis Autism Glow Walk will be held on April 28th, and activities prior to the walk will be held in the Hasty 3 Armory. We'll have news on that as it gets closer. April 28th is Drug Give Back Day. If you have old prescriptions, you can turn them in at the Hoosick Falls Police Station over there, 24 Main Street. Don't flush them. It just is not good for water systems. Another one, the 5th Annual Combined Concert with the Hoosick Falls Community Band and the Hoosick Falls Central Symphonic Bands, some crazy director there, will be held this Wednesday on the 11th, beginning at 7:30. It's tomorrow at the Immaculate Conception Church. It's always been at the school, but as the church went through their flood and are facing questions on what they're going to do with the future of their structure, I brought the idea up to Bill Gaylord, who was all about it, and then to Ken Facine, who was all about it, then to Father Tom, who was very gracious for the idea of any proceeds from the 50-50 and concessions would go back to them, to their facility fund, in a sense, to sort of help them out. So I have one I wanted to add here. Jamie is here. Where are you, Jamie? He had a request. Do you have that email handy? To use, I think we were discussing it in there, so we probably left it on the table. To use the fields down by the Old Water Works for a event on
June 2nd.
June.
Scouts are looking to have a picnic, kind of send the boys in the summer, and just looking for a spot that we could bring grills. There used to be grills there.
Right. So the question is, first off, approving the event, and then is it okay for them to bring portable grills down to the field? I did check with Ted Senecal, and baseball, softball is fine with it. It's completely out of the way, so no issues, no conflicts with that. So I guess the only question is it all right with you guys for bringing portable grills there?
Insurance?
Yep.
Do we have to worry about insurance?
No,
I think when doing
There might still be one rusted grill, and I know they talked
We used to have some there
briefly.
before.
Don't use that one.
Don't use
that
one. Please
But I
don't.
mean, I think a lot of people, and Kevin,
Oh
might
yeah, I don't think
jump in, and
that's up to
Bobby.
Andy again, but
There used to be a lot of events down there. There was a lot of people at picnics, reunions, everything, Waterworks Park, and it'd be really nice to let people know it's somewhere you can still use and introduce it to a new generation. So
I mean, I don't think the scouts are going to be the ones to start the fire. They'd be the ones to put it out pretty well, since they know everything. Yeah.
You are gonna wanna check with your insurance broker, just to let them know that, make sure that that's covered.
Okay.
Because these are gonna be invitees bringing in.
Okay.
that, just-
All right.
Just to make sure that.
So then I guess I'm looking for a motion that
if you're okay with insurance,
if insurance is okay with it, we're approving it in the use of the. Sorry about that.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you a question. Jamie, does the Cub Scouts must have an insurance rider anyway, don't they? Probably, or
Boy Scouts would.
Boy Scouts? I mean, yeah.
Cub Scouts, I would have to check to be 100% sure.
I'm just saying, if the insurance company asks for it, it's just a rider for that day, right, Andy? Probably just for
Yep.
whatever the
I can
time.
look into that too.
All right.
they don't insure them till their Weeblos.
All right.
Well,
Good valid points. I was hoping we could just be like, yay tonight, but it's what it is. So
Well, we can approve.
we can approve the event.
depending on
You'll be
the,
Yeah.
right,
So do you want to
insurance.
put that in a motion?
And what, Jamie? Is there a time or any?
No. probably-
Sometime during the
probably
day.
lunch.
Okay.
Not at night.
No,
Okay.
not at night. There's no way. Half of them are 5 and 6 years old. Going to bed. But it would be lunch. You know,
Okay.
just down there, they can run around, burn off some energy,
All right.
and then send them home.
Don't burn anything but energy.
All right, so I'll make the motion that we approve the Cub Scouts for the use of the waterworks at the
Waterworks Field, not the
Waterworks
Waterworks.
Field. No, the Waterworks
That would
Field.
change the
Waterworks
event.
Park. Use the
Well, there isn't no park, but
Waterworks Park.
and pending the or based on the insurance, okay. From our
Regarding the
writer.
grills.
Right.
Yeah.
Girls, yeah.
Okay. Everybody get that? Looking for a second?
Second.
All right. Ben? Yes.
I did check, on the calendar, it is the 28th, but that has it.
All right, thank you.
That's 28th.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, April 28th.
The transfer station, Steventown, April 28th. Thank you, Judy. Yep. All right. So motions there. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Just let me know if I gotta get something else, Dave.
We'll know from insurance folks in a couple days, and I'll shoot you an email.
Fine.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. All right. No more announcements, correspondences. So we're moving on to the people to be heard section regarding anything, budget or otherwise. So just to get an idea of anyone who'd like to speak, just have a show of hands. 1, 2. All right. Yeah, yours is at the end. Yep. All right. 4 minutes limit is fine. All right, ladies first. Just as a reminder, and to everybody, all these meetings are recorded, so we put them on online as permanent records. It's a policy, just to state your name and address.
At 3rd Street.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if you've heard, there's nothing on the agenda, it's been a while, if you've heard anything from either DOH or DEC about any public, anythings they keep saying they're going to have?
Yes, I'm going to actually discuss those in more detail in the meeting in 2 weeks. One of the reasons actually of having that meeting is to have some more time to get updates from them. I will say for the record that we did get a look at the draft version of the alternate water supply study, and we sent back and we actually met with DEC and had a really good long conversation and sent back a lot of comments for DEC to bring back to the agencies. It's our opinion at this point that we want to see more work done before that comes out publicly, because there's no use, I think, at this point in releasing it publicly. So that's sort of been the village's standpoint on that. Our attorneys were involved in that. I think you guys have all seen it in various. Well, I don't think you guys have seen much of it yet, but we're getting there and getting
Should I
caught
not
up.
repeat
So
the phrase I used to describe it?
no.
Okay. No, it wasn't that
In
bad.
terms of the supplemental studies, I've learned that they're doing sort of quarterly rounds of sampling, including in the supplemental areas where they've increased a lot of different. They've added monitoring wells and some soil samples around McCaffrey and around Liberty Street. We haven't seen those data. The DEC is expecting to get that data actually any time now. So I'm hoping that in 2 weeks we have some more information data on that.
DOH as well?
DOH, yes. I normally have a conference call with them before a meeting. I put it off a month because of the wisdom teeth and because I knew we'd be having a meeting in 2 weeks. So I'm having that call next week with them. I'll have more data the week after. But in terms of testing, if anything was out of the norm or an issue, you know we'd be out there with it. So, anything else? Thank you.
Kevin Allard, 5421 State Route 7, Hoosick Falls, New York. I'd like to say congratulations to Ben Patton, Vanessa Lewis, and Craig Pine for getting elected. And I'd also like to say thank you to Emily Marpy for putting your name out there and giving the people of the village of Hoosick Falls a choice. So thank you for that. I'd like to follow up on Honeywell and VOCs.
I haven't gotten anything new specifically from them, but that's something I want to broach with my call next week with them. I know they had finished a lot. Nothing has changed since the last time we spoke about it. Nothing that I've heard.
They were doing a lot of
I've
work
added.
there. They were down doing a lot of.
Yeah.
I saw them drawing samples in down by the John Street location. One day last week, I'm not sure exactly what the date was. It was like 6 or 7 trucks down there, and like
Yeah.
15 or 20 people inside the fence area. So
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what.
I do know that a lot of things were put off because the weather did not cooperate and bring us spring at a rightful time, so they couldn't get out and do some things like that, installing wells, monitoring wells at the landfill, which are on the schedule for the next month or two. But I don't have any information for you extra than what I've said in the past. My apologies for that, but I hope to have some in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I know some of the residents are also getting some remediation.
I've heard that.
In the John Street area.
Yeah, I've heard that most of those interim remedial measures are completed, but that's just by talking to a couple folks who are down there.
So we still don't have a footprint of the size of that spill down there yet?
Not fully, no. I don't think so. And that's actually a question that we have about just sort of stepping back to the McCaffrey Street, Liberty Street, PFOA. I don't know when when you'd expect them to reach the end where they don't find it anymore in water or soil.
McCaffrey Street and Liberty Street, I don't think you have a footprint yet on John Street.
On John Street in the VOCs.
Right.
I will ask. Thank you for bringing that up.
Air emission quality that has already been done down in Petersburg for Deconic. The 2 guys that were here from DEC said it was done in Hoosick Falls. Said 2 months ago that they were going to ship that over to you.
Haven't seen it yet, but I will again ask them in my conference call next week.
And that's on Gen X.
Yep.
Okay. The last thing is, on your zoning board, if you have 3 people present, just keep in mind all 3 have to vote yes.
For something to pass, correct. Because if 2 people vote yes and 1 vote no, that's not the majority.
Yeah,
Yes,
you need
we know.
people pass.
We know. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a meeting way back about a year ago. Honeywell was in there, and they did talk about VOC, and they hadn't quite identified footprint. But one thing, do you remember them mentioning, because of the flood control wall along the river, and then the chute where Woods Brook goes, has created an accidental, almost artificial. Remember they had said a containment.
That's why they didn't test over to the side,
Right.
because that
Those
one
walls
edge.
have kind of pretty much probably kept it just right there.
But I think you're asking more about towards the south, which is the natural
The other
flow
direction.
of water.
No, that's north as well.
That
They
one's
said
north?
that, yeah, because the stream flows north as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so that, and it's all uphill. I think they had said they were looking elsewhere, but at the time that, and this could change, but at the time they'd said those walls had kind of sealed it accidentally.
Downhill, Jail Hill. Is that the one you're talking
Jail
about?
Hill, yes.
Okay. Well, there were about 15 trucks behind my shop in front of Helen Rustino's last week.
That's what you were saying, right? All the
Well,
trucks.
no, that's
No,
that was
No, there's
Oh.
monitoring wells there too.
Yeah.
Where's
so
that
they were
one?
out checking all
That's-
the wells. The
Right
monitoring
along
wells
the
are
road.
Adjacent
around.
to Elm and Willow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Okay.
would actually be up the hill.
Yeah.
right up the hill from John Street.
Mm-hmm.
But those wells also sometimes go deeper as well. No pun intended. They
Yeah.
go deeper, or they're looking for stuff that was spread through air.
Well, they
if it's
came through
uphill.
there like they were on fire, let me tell you.
They didn't want to mess with you. They parked in front of your shop and they've read.
They did.
They've read the
actually.
Eagle and the Eastwick, and they know.
Exactly. No, they actually did. They clogged up the whole corner there for about 10 minutes.
Anyone
So
else
I
for
thought there was
the?
like a fire.
Anyone else for the people to be heard? Anyone else still? You still have a chance to speak in the budget. All right. In that case, we will move on. I'm going to leave the public hearing open for a little bit longer. Sorry, treasurer report. Ben. Or Denise, because you're right here. Wait a minute, Denise is here.
Yeah, she's gonna be here.
Sorry.
She's the girl.
Come on, Ben, let's get it. Go.
As always, this is the time of year when you want to try to contain your spending. General fund is going to be very, very touchy this year with our flood expenses.
I forgot that.
We had approximately $320,000 of unbudgeted flood expenses. Neil and I were able to put a couple of the projects under CHIPS reimbursement, and he also
Put off some purchases.
put off his
Yep.
truck that was budgeted for. We've
Some
been able
upgrades.
to bring it down to approximately $250,000, but it's still unbudgeted expenditures, which is gonna hit our fund balance.
Yep.
That's what we're projecting right now, if everything stays with no other major disasters or unforeseen. We'll probably end
Knock
up
on wood,
using some
seriously.
additional fund balance on top of what we had projected. Same scenario with water, we really need to try to save anywhere that we can, that we don't necessarily
Yep.
direly need something.
Yep.
Sewer is in pretty good shape, but it just, especially to the end of the year, if everybody can keep down the expenses and not spend anything that we don't absolutely have to have.
Are your ends the end of May fiscal year or end?
End of May.
31st.
May 30th.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
in the
but-
process right now of invoicing all the April water and sewer bills, keeping the three of us busy, but that
Mhm.
revenue isn't projected. I do know that our usage was down, as the mayor had stated,
Yep.
for however many different reasons, but
Slightly shorter
not
period than
helping.
normal, but yeah.
when the water usage is down, the sewer usage is down, it affects everything. So
Yep. Yep. So in fact, I forgot to mention this with the budget. The water guys had a great thing that they wanted. They asked for us to purchase, and we had to say no to it just because we're so concerned about the funds. It's not a dire need. It's a really great thing that would help a lot, but it's not the time right now. So, and again, if we didn't have the flood, we'd be in
we would think.
great shape. But,
And a brutal winter.
yep.
And a lot of snow expense, yeah.
All right. Any questions? Looking for motion to approve the treasurer report.
Motion.
Ben, second.
Second.
Craig, thank you. Any further discussion?
Excuse me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Minutes. Looking to approve the minutes for February 13th and March 13th.
Motion.
Or were there any? Motion. Do you want to approve one or both?
For both. Motion to approve both, yeah.
Approve both.
Second.
Brian, second. Bobby. Any discussion? Any things that you saw that were off or needed to be changed? I looked over them and they looked
No,
fine to me.
I accept them as presented.
Okay, then hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. We did the police report already. Check our time here. Another report. Code enforcement report. Mark.
Guess I'm a new guy here taking this page. The code report, there really is nothing special, just updated everything. Still have a lot of red tag properties, 16.
Yeah.
The other properties listed there is just properties where they're not red tagged, but they are abandoned or they're zombie properties. There's 6 of those. Unsafe structures, and just really been spending a lot of time following up on the letters that we sent out in November, December, and just working those cases through, trying to send out the first notices or just letters, then a first notice, and then a second notice, and starting to, one of the notes that I put on there was, the result of that is I actually have 7 new cases that will be going to village court next week, for people who have just haven't replied or whatever, so. That's about it, unless somebody has any questions.
I do, actually, and I'm just wondering if you've had time to take a look at the specialty. And it's gotten a lot worse since winter, and kids are trying to get in. There's quite a few ground level open windows, and if you look from the corner of my shop, that top set of windows is buckling terribly. I'm sure it's the cold and the heat and the cold and the heat, but it's getting pretty dangerous. And I just didn't know if you'd had time to kind of swing by there.
I have not looked at the specialty since,
Yeah.
since late in the fall.
It's already been cited though, right?
It's already been cited, I just gotta get back to the paperwork on it.
All right.
Okay,
Well,
well,
somebody-
it's gone a little bit farther, I think probably since early winter, so.
If you
I
want to
just
be
wanted-
really scared, look on Google Earth where you can see the big crater.
Yeah,
in
you
the
can see the
Yeah.
roof.
I'm
is
usually
missing.
chasing the kids out.
Somebody contacted me about that building. I don't know why, but they had said National Grid offers some grants for demolition, and I was not aware that we had discussed that or anybody had. Is that anything that's on?
It's privately owned building right now.
Okay. So if somebody just misheard something, but I guess National Grid offers like up to $300,000 or something for demolition.
One Center Street.
As a grant match.
That's a special.
Okay.
Mark, I checked on that last week. The property owner's in bankruptcy right now. He owes the county $83,000 back taxes.
Not surprising.
And I said, are you gonna foreclose on it? They said they can't. Why? He's in bankruptcy, what I find ridiculous, but.
Oh, I was not aware of that. I just know he bought the building and stripped it.
Really?
And he hasn't paid
Yeah,
a dime
debtor in
tax
possession.
on it,
And that's why the process takes forever, is because of little things
so.
like
It's
this.
normally
that
it's a
slow it
3-year
up.
process anyway. They won't touch it for 3 years.
Kevin, is it chapter 13.7? What is the personal, or do you know?
I'm not sure what type of bankruptcies he's under. I was gonna approach the county attorney or the county executive and talk to him about the property, because there are some interest in the building itself. So, I'll do that
That'd be
this
great.
week.
That'd be great.
Mark, you have one, that's 1 Center Street, right?
Yes.
That's here.
You
Safe
have it listed
structures.
on here. Excuse me, it's unsafe
That's
structures.
an unsafe building.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
It's the first one on the list.
Yeah. Do we have a list of all the properties that are unsafe, abandoned, red tagged, and have the water turned off in the village? This is the whole list?
No, I don't have a list of all the properties that have water turned off. If I'm aware of it, I try to note it on
Okay.
here. But this is the list of the properties that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Does that
Red
list
tagged,
exist?
abandoned, zombie properties.
Is that something that Jim could generate for you? You should be able to
not know.
Jim probably has a list of
Well, we
where
have-
all the water's turned off.
I'd like to start looking at making maybe a master list of. Oh, Jim's got one? Okay.
Great.
I'd like to see a sort of a master list of the houses that are, all in these situations, houses that are for sale and no one's living in them right now, just to sort of see what we're looking at. Because I think we need to make some changes, and I had an interesting meeting with some people who had some neat ideas about how to handle this in a long-term way. I mean, zombie properties is a problem in every municipality, and it's particularly felt hard in ours because all of these buildings that are not they're not on a tax base means that it's affecting everyone else. So the more of these houses we can get back up on the
And how I try to differentiate between the two, zombie properties I listed because if they're bank owned or somehow there's a mortgage against them or something like that, I listed those as the zombie properties. The abandoned ones, I didn't see a mortgage or anything
Okay.
that was listed against them. People have just walked away from them.
Yeah, which happens.
Yeah, 'cause I have a house next door to me, it's been vacant. So the bank closed it up on October 2 years ago. And the guy from the bank came by the other day and I talked to him. He said it's in foreclosure. She walked away from it and then she passed away. So and she was getting the process of divorce.
Like the-
So the whole thing, he said it could be, 5 to 7 years before it's resolved. By then the house is gonna be worth nothing.
Yep.
Is the water turned off?
The water's off, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the bank winterized it and everything, but
Oh,
it's just.
lucky there.
Yeah, because they don't
Yeah.
often do that.
Yeah.
A lot of our houses that are in shambles are because the banks
But it's
didn't do that
frustrating.
when
It's
it
a
went
nice
to
house
foreclosure.
and there's nothing, I mean, it just can't, somebody could buy it and, but.
But with no heat, if the frost gets in the walls. it's-
Oh, I know, it's
Mhm.
all hardwood floors too, so.
That won't be for long. All right. Any other questions, Mark? Thank you, Mark. Looking
Thanks,
for a
Mark.
motion to approve the
Motion.
code enforcement report.
Second.
Bobby and Ben. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last chance to speak or have questions about the budget.
And students, I'll sign their. Anybody has the paper.
All right. And students, if you want to get your paperwork signed, just kind of casually slip it up here, and Trustee Bushner will sign it. In the meantime, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing related to the tentative budget.
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. Second, Ben. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Now, there is another public hearing to open. Yep, do it right now. The second public hearing we had to open, I'm looking for a motion to open a public hearing pertaining to local law number 1 of 2018. This would be a local law to establish a tax cap override for the fiscal year of 2018.
Motion.
Ben?
Second.
Second, Craig. Thank you. So we're just opening it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are in public hearing. And we've mentioned this in the past couple meetings. This is simply one of those things where if we felt the need to or had to put forth a budget to be voted on that would actually go over the tax cap, override the tax cap, we would need to have this local law in place ahead of time, or we wouldn't be able to do that. Andy, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, this is a proposed local law. This is the public hearing associated with the proposed local law for tax cap override. It doesn't obligate the village board to adopt a local law. The budget ultimately is below the tax cap, then the board will not be acting on this local law. But procedurally, it's been introduced, and we'll have the public hearing tonight in the event the board does need to act on that prior to adoption of the final budget.
Yep. And I have zero intention to do that, to put us in that position. I don't want to do that at any cost, and I think that the tentative budget that we have doesn't do that. It puts us as close as we can be, so which means the tax increase would be slightly under 2%, but it doesn't do that. So at this point, as per any public hearing, there's a people to be heard section. Does anybody want to sound off or discuss anything related to this local law?
I have a question.
Oh, and you have to say your name and...
I'm Sharon McGuire, Artistic Hair, 53 Elm Street.
Thank you.
Or any of the other 3 lovely properties that I own. The fact that you have so many dead zombie houses that are not paying taxes, could that in fact make you need to go above the tax cap to cover your expenses for your regular budget?
If I'm correct, the answer is no. What it could possibly do is change the distribution of the tax base upon residents.
So
Is that right?
Well, I believe the county pays us the taxes, then the county is responsible for it.
Yes.
So we get the money for those properties
made whole
regardless.
by the county.
It takes a while, but yeah.
But the county is the one in the hole.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking that's a big burden to
Yep.
shoulder
Yep.
amongst the many others.
No, the county picks it up eventually. We get that money back in.
Okay.
It does take some time, but yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Marion Stevens, Weiler Avenue, Hoosick Falls. I think the biggest concern we have, and I hope other people have the same concern, is all these new assessments that got released.
Mm-hmm.
And our tax base went up quite a bit with those wonderful new assessments. Many have great, I've been one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be my concern with going over the tax cap, is increased revenue, because again, you do have senior citizens that live in the community with limited income. And if this new assessment goes through the way it is, we're gonna be killed with our taxes already. To have it more will be a concern.
Agree. And again, just for the record, this the assessments would not change for this coming 2018-2019 fiscal year that we'd be voting on. But those changes would be in effect for the 2019-2020 budget.
Yeah, but I'm somebody that's always concerned when something happens one year, then it kind of goes on the next year and things like that. It's just kind of things that I have seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to know we have not voted yet to accept.
We are discussing
that's
that
the village
later,
rate.
and
we.
Andy has some
Yeah,
updates,
we-
procedural updates. That's
Okay.
coming.
We'll
Yep.
go over that.
Yep. Anyone else like to speak on or I'm sorry, were you done? Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak pertaining to the tax cap override? Okay, as all public hearings will remain open for 30 minutes, so if you want to speak up on that, that's fine. I want to jump back to where we were. Clerk's reports. Jumping around like crazy.
I listed some of these census papers and reports and la 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 that you have to fill out.
Do you sing when you fill them out like that?
She usually says that when you talk to her.
Not quite those words. As Denise said, they read their meters last week. We proofed them. We had I'm going to say 50 to 60 either homes that are abandoned, don't have pipes, or don't have meters. She said the usage is down. We're now 3 of us are entering those lovely water things.
Mm-hmm.
The data entry is just wonderful. Working with Andy on this zoning planning thing, which I think we're going to have at the next meeting.
Yep. I'd love to have something to figure out for our meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else, Chick? I don't know.
You've covered it.
Everything.
Yep.
Very busy.
And all the calls
Busy.
asking for the
And
court and the
you,
police.
Yeah.
And me dealing with
Yeah,
me.
we're dispatchers, yeah.
All right. Anything else? Any houses sold? Anything like that? This
Didn't even look at
Yeah,
it.
there's probably, I'm gonna say.
I think we got 5 in the other day.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came about.
All right.
Changes.
Yep, one on my street actually. All right, looking to. Are any questions? All right, looking to approve the clerk's report. Motion for to approve the clerk's report. Ben, thank you.
Second.
Second, Brian. Any for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Community service report. I just got it. 1 second. Yeah, he emailed it to me like an hour before the meeting started. The community service reports. I was gonna forward it on to you. I forgot because it was 5:20.
You didn't.
All right, completed 113 hours for the month of March. Projects included but are not limited to weekly cleaning of town of Hoosick office space, cleaned police station, cleaned highway equipment, swept sidewalks and streets. I'm glad to see that's going on. Assisted with tables and chairs for Wood Park and St. Patrick's Day, and that comes from Jeremy McAuliffe. So I'm looking for a motion to approve. Thank you. Craig, second?
Second.
Thank you. Bobby, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Was he in the list for appointees, community service? I don't think I saw him in there.
No, he wasn't.
No.
Is he supposed to be appointed?
I think Denise Pine is.
I don't think so.
You know what? I don't.
I feel like he was appointed last year.
What is that?
Hey Jerry, you're off the hook.
No, don't do that.
No.
Well, we can appoint him in 2 weeks anyway. I'll look into that and see if we need to appoint him in 2 weeks. Okay. Committee reports. Obviously, Trustee Lewis and Trustee Pine probably don't have any reports as you just started about an hour and a half ago. Trustee Bushner.
Brace yourself.
Oh boy.
I'm kidding. All right.
I gotta get a picture of your look of panic when you hear something.
I know,
like that.
right?
Wait, the mayor has a 5-page report.
The LWRP finally had a kickoff meeting. The LWRP is the local waterfront revitalization program.
Yes.
What it is, and we have a few meetings coming up with that. It takes a look at making our river a centerpiece for revitalization in the community. It is it's considered an inland waterway. It started off as grants that went out to communities along the sea coast, but is expanded to inland waterways, and we would be one. Jamie was on the. You've joined as well, right? But you weren't at the meeting. You were Greenway. Sorry. But there is a committee that's come together. We could always use additional people. So basically, the process goes through creating a plan that includes a land use inventory. And as we go through the plan, it's kind of one of those things where, use the phrase, it's a moonshot. For example, if we said, okay, the wall downtown serves a purpose, but it's also really ugly, we'd like to get rid of it and make it a grass burn like the existing one, just as an example. It doesn't mean it will happen, but if we put it into the plan, this plan, once it's done through New York State and federal funding, opens the door to that funding to apply for it. So there is a plethora of money that we are not eligible to apply for at this time because we've never done one of these. There are some upcoming dates for, there will be a public meeting. There also will be some more committee meetings, and we'll be eligible if we stay on schedule to start applying for grants by the end of 2019.
All right.
It's based on community input, and the meetings coming up are the LWRP committee's next meeting is 6 p.m. on Monday, May 7th. And there will be another meeting in the beginning of June, which is a workshop. I just gotta find the date. Apologies. And the workshop is. I'll have to give you that date in 2 weeks because apparently I didn't write it in here. But there'll be a workshop after that.
Okay.
any questions on what that is, I think I kind of covered. We have a grant to do that, and BNL's helping manage that as well. We're working with BNL on this. Greenway, to move on to Greenway. Greenway met this past week. The Greenway Committee is part of this local waterfront redevelopment, and the Greenway is going to be starting to work on a canoe launch at the old waterworks site.
Nice.
We're going to be we don't need an RFP with that. I'm going to double check with you, but back when the grant was written, it's a 2006 or 7 grant that was extended another year. We have to use it by fall.
Yes.
But by the time we go through the process and the design plan and everything and approved by the committee and New York State Parks and blah, blah, construction likely in the fall due to timing of the process, which will give us time to spend that. The demolition of the old waterworks building counts as a match for this grant, so village money will not have to be spent.
Oh,
and
that's
volunteer
great.
time counts as well, so we're able to match the 50-50 match. There's about $175,000 in there, but you have to back out half of that as the match.
Okay.
So we'll be able to hopefully have a nice parking lot there and a canoe, more of a takeout than lunch, because you can put in out by school and then come down to
Parking lot down there will be awesome.
It doesn't give you much room to. Doesn't give you a long stretch if you put your canoe in there.
No, it doesn't.
And before the fall, hopefully.
You actually have to turn around at the trestle. It's illegal to enter the flood control chute, but yeah, if you really want to be brave, you can take a short canoe trip. But yeah, it's that'd be a really great thing and a long-term goal. Also, there's a 2015 grant. It's still in process. The feds have not funded it to New York State, but
Right.
that'll create parking and improvements on the northern end up on the unfortunately named sewage plant road. Father Tom said it was a crappy name and we should change it. I looked into that.
Sounds like Father Tom.
He used a different word. It sounds really like Father Tom.
Poopy.
Yeah.
All right.
And National Grid actually owns it. It's a right of way for us, so we can't change the name. And I don't want to deal with that. The next Hoosick Rising meeting, this is the last thing I have, I'm so sorry, is going to be at Bite on Wednesday the 18th. They're opening special for us to have the meeting.
Nice.
And I'll be getting an email out about that hopefully tomorrow.
Good.
What time?
6 p.m.
Great.
If I forgot anything,
Is that it? Is that all you got?
I'm sure I forgot stuff.
All right. I'm sure you did.
Communication. Still no update on the reverse.
Is that the reverse 911?
Yep. It is basically one guy.
Why don't you and I go in him? I'm sure I'll
You know,
That's not a bad idea.
I offered having the week off, most of the week off for spring break, to go and meet with him in person because we have to do this whole webinar thing, and he was like, "Oh no! I don't meet people in person. We do a webinar," and he got really panicked, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So
It's just that I think you're getting a lot of runaround for a program that's open to all the other areas.
it is, but nobody
And
is
I'm
signing
going-
on because they can't.
Well, the thing is, they should allow, they're kind of being, I think, a little prejudicial because, like I said, I get the warnings for Albany, Troy, everything on my phone right now. And I think they're giving you a runaround. And
Are there any communities in the county besides Troy?
Well, I
signed on?
I'm smart enough to not get a runaround, so I don't mean even
well,
as
no,
an
but
insult,
it's just been
but
quite a while that
yes.
we
So
said first it was going to be all right. We're meeting March, and we're past March now. We're
Yeah.
going into April.
So the way it works now is existing municipalities that are on the system were converted to a new system that has not gone smoothly, and they are not adding any new municipalities to that system until they have it ironed out with the existing stable of who they have. So there is a wait list.
So we're stuck in waiting because we weren't
we
on
are.
it originally.
We were not on it originally, and also Rensselaer County does not have some of the same reverse 911 data, so it will be consumer driven, adding another layer to the delay in even adding us in. So we are not at the bottom of the list of however many. He hasn't given me a
Well,
number on
then
that,
maybe the
but
village
we are
has
there.
to look into what other alternatives they can use for notifying people because,
know if there
like
are
I
any.
said, you've had some emergency.
There are others. They cost a lot of money.
Oh.
So.
But, you know, I'm not trying to be mean here, but, you know, you've had a village in crisis here, And because of lack of communication, it got into a very bad crisis, and I think preventative is the best room. So I think this reverse 911, it's been way back with the Borges I had brought this up with, and it was down at that time because of the runaround they were giving. And here we are into a year with you, and I'm not downing you. You've tried, but maybe there's gotta be an alternative form of communication.
I could always reach out.
Because we can't count on Facebook. I mean, we've been very good. You've been very transparent about being on Facebook and Twitter and things, but you have a lot of people that don't have those, don't use those services.
Yep.
And a lot of them is, again, your older people, and they're the risks that you're talking about when you come in this community with things, or like renters that did not know about water situations and things like that. We could go a long list on the lack of communication. So I'm just, and
No, I
I'm
understand
willing
it's
to work
priorities,
with all of
you
you
know.
on it. I'm not sitting here being a complainer and not, you know me. If you needed an extra body to do anything, you
Yes,
know
you're
I'd be
always
the one.
willing.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
frustrating. I share that because it is a process that has gone on a long time.
It's got some time.
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe we need to look at alternatives.
All right. Thank you.
Actually, I was down in the village of Castleton a while ago, and they were requesting people's phone numbers to put on their 911 call system, reverse. So I can check with them and see if there's an alternative to that.
Well,
who they use or whatever.
Rensselaer County doesn't have the software required to do that. That's the explanation from NY Alert. So any others, we'd have to pay a private contractor, and those start about $10,000 a year.
Ooh.
Rensselaer County, how's Troy on this?
They already were
Well,
on it.
I think what you're,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to clarify. Reverse 911 is something from dispatch, which Castleton would have, where it's from the dispatch center. This is more, NY Alert is more related to the old broadcast EAS alert, emergency alert system, used to be emergency broadcast system. It's where an alert can be generated by the National Weather Service, by dispatch, but when it's sent out, it only goes, it's user driven, it's opt-in. Reverse 911 is not necessarily opt-in. That's either where your phone makes the awful noise because there's a tornado warning, or if you have the Amber Alerts turned on, that's a forced one you can opt out of. Reverse 911, where you get a phone call and or text, is also not necessarily an opt-in. You have to opt out, meaning they can reach out through the network. With NY Alert, it's through text messages or emails that you've signed up and consented and requested to receive. So there's two different things here. So when dispatch does it, it's different. Rensselaer County, they don't have that data set where they can do that through NY Alert.
All right.
It's
All right.
a little confusing. Yeah.
Working
so
on it. And just as he wraps up, and especially for our new trustees, grants have been an interesting thing to get my head around over this past first year as mayor. Not only are our grants hard to follow, but they have grants that allow you to go for bigger and better grants. So it's a long process, but any grant that you have means we're getting funds or resources that are not on the backs of the taxpayers, so it's always worth it. And one of the things that I want to do more this year, especially as I was looking over the committee list, and very excited about what you guys are bringing into this new and what you guys have been doing in the past, is making sure you guys are more involved in what grants are going on as they pertain to the committees you're in, just so everyone's more on the same page of it. And that will also help me stay on my game, because you guys can say, hey, what's the latest on this thing, or what's the latest thing on the sewer project, or so on and so forth. So I just want to mention that. I meant to mention that earlier. All right, Bobby.
The only thing I have is regarding the Smart Watt, our LED lighting upgrade that we've talked about doing. Got an email, and I think you were a copy on it, Ann wasn't. So, Ann, did we ever copy or get a hold of Joe
I wrote Mr. Palone that letter.
from National Grid?
Just waiting for him.
So we can move forward. We're at the point where we can move forward now, because National Grid got the, as far as the approval from the state regarding the financing. So we just need to get the information from them, our buyout number, so we can move forward. And he wants him to meet with us next week if we can, Rob, if we can set up some time maybe.
We still have afternoons free, so we can do that.
Okay. So I'll try
Not
to.
for long.
I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see if we can meet with him
That
next
works.
week, some afternoon,
That
late
works.
in the afternoon or something.
I got to schedule one with Denise, and I have to schedule one with DEC. I think that one's on Thursday, tentatively. So other days I think will work.
Just so Craig and Vanessa know what we're talking about. We're talking about taking all of our existing lighting in
Street lights.
fixtures and bulbs and upgrading to LED lighting throughout the entire village.
And also
Thanks.
owning them all?
Yeah, we're going to own them.
Own all of them, not just some that we own.
Right,
all of
we're
them.
going to own all of them. And it's bottom line is if everything goes correctly, we should see a savings of around $60,000+ a year over a 20-year period. So like $1.2 million over a 20-year period. So it's definitely well worth looking into, and we've agreed to move forward with it. We're just waiting on National Grid now. So
yeah,
Because we have to buy back.
right, we have to buy out
Because they
the
own
property from them, and then we finance it, and our savings is through the kilowatt, the less money we're paying for the electricity based on the lights. So.
And Kevin, Bobby, I'm sorry.
I've been
Looking
called
at
worse,
Kevin.
don't worry.
Bobby Patton Lewis over here, right?
Bobby
That's my brother's name, Kevin.
Who is this? When we do get closer to that, I do want to make sure to have a discussion about the color temperature of the LEDs.
Right.
And the
right.
environmental concerns
Absolutely.
and all that.
And that's
make
actually in
sure
the
they're-
proposal he sent. He gave examples of different lighting, so it's aesthetically correct
Yes.
for everybody. Yes.
And yeah, the plant life,
Right.
wildlife, etc. Because
Yep.
those are unintended consequences in other communities.
Yeah, definitely want to
Okay.
make sure of that. But that's the only thing I have. I just want to let you know we need to set up another meeting
Yep.
with him. And
All right.
and actually, the person who we had originally dealt with, Greg Royer, has left Smart Lot. So now there's
Right.
Scott, and he's from Scott Clark. He actually lives in Cambridge, so it's
Ah.
better. So
There you go.
okay.
Thank you, Bobby. Ben?
As far as water is concerned, new compressors are online in the plant.
Nice.
Everything else looks good. I do have a letter. Jim,
Oh, yeah.
if you could come out here, please. This is a letter written from the New York Rural Water Association to Jim, dated March 19th. Dear Jim, congratulations. It is with great pleasure that I inform you that the New York Rural Water Association Board and staff have selected you to receive our 2018 Water Operations Specialist of the Year Award. Your outstanding commitment and dedication to our profession and duty to serve our communities has made this an easy selection. It is, I'm assuming it should be great recognition. They say gain recognition. I'm thinking great recognition, which is long overdue. Our annual award ceremony will be held on Tuesday, May 22nd, 2018, beginning at 11:30 at Burning Stone Resort. During our wait, don't go anywhere. During our 39th annual technical training workshop and exhibition. They can't have that in Salem. They have to have it at Turning Stone. We would be honored if you could attend the ceremony, and please feel free to bring any village officials you who may wish to acknowledge your achievement and bring quarters with them.
All
Again,
right.
congratulations, Jim, and thank you for your many years of devoted service to the village of Hoosick Falls. Sincerely, J. Andrew Herman, Chief Executive Officer. Congratulations.
And in all honesty, I've only been working with you for a year. I wasn't in those crazy couple years before that when everything was going on. I only know a fraction of what you endured and what work you put in, both you and Josh. So I think that is absolutely well deserved and well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll rent the van, okay, Jim?
And a quick note, I was listening to everything. Way back, where's Ann? Ann, you should have a copy of this water shut-off list. Way back, I'd say like 5-6 years ago, we did a water list.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Mark in here. The problem with the list, and we have a person here tonight that's gonna have a discussion about water being shut off. One, we don't own these shut-offs. We can go shut these houses off, but if the bank or the people that come in and want to winterize these houses, they turn the water on. There's nothing we can do about it.
Okay.
And, I feel bad for people that are buying houses and they're stuck with all these bills and stuff. But, we got to do something with these banks and these
Yeah.
mortgage companies.
Yeah.
We really gotta start pushing the issue.
We'll be discussing
How?
this situation shortly.
I have no clue. I tried to talk to Brandy about this, and I mean, I feel that her situation is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the only one. We had another one 2 months ago.
Yep.
I mean, these banks are pushing off to these other people that are buying these houses for less money, and then they're turning around and selling it to people like Brandy and whoever else to redo these houses.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
They're zombie houses too.
Yeah,
The lines
you
are cut
know.
inside the houses.
I don't, you know, I know we're doing community reports, but I want to get out of here. I just wanted to give you my input.
Yep.
And I don't know what the board wants to do with all this.
We're you're talking the global issue.
Yeah.
The larger issue.
We really need to do something, and I will have an updated list for you.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, everybody.
Congratulations, sir.
Congrats.
Anything else, Ben?
No, I'm done, sorry.
Thank you. Kevin?
We've been talking about the LDC and communication between them, and finally got an email from them. The LDC currently has 3 outstanding loans. The LDC is currently researching a town-wide business website, brochure, and construction of a tourism kiosk, similar to the one in North Hoosick at the Stewart Shop. And that's one of the problems I think Brian and I had with the LDC is they're doing this, and the village, which funds it through our money, we really don't have any idea of what they're doing, and
It didn't explain much.
didn't explain much. And I found out from the county will fund half of that money for a brochure, and I'm not sure they're aware of that. So I think we should keep more contact with the LDC and what they're up to.
Maybe time to sit down with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about
Or
it.
have
I've
a
only been here for a
liaison
year.
from the village board
Yep.
be part of that group. Or,
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Is that you volunteering?
I think you and us and I could rotate as well, and when they have meetings where we could all kind of, I'm volunteering all of us.
Well, I don't think they're too busy. They have 3 outstanding loans right now, and they're looking for other entrepreneurs
Yeah.
or people interested in loans to contact them.
Well, I'd like to know who the loans are made to, what the balance. You know, that is public. It is money
That's what I
public
thought
money
I'd
we
get.
gave. I do have something else I forgot to, but I'll let you finish with the HUD small cities for economic development. But I'll wait till next meeting.
But that's all on that. And I'll contact Bill and I'll try to communicate more with him on that and see what's happening.
Close that.
The other thing, last month I talked a little bit about, after Mark brought up about the properties that were in disrepair and try to find some housing rehabilitation money. LaBerge was the last one that did it for the village, and they no longer do housing rehabilitation work, so he put me in touch with a couple of different companies. Avalon was also working for the village at one time. They're out of business. So I finally went to the state, and the state by the name of TAP in Troy, and currently actually they're working with the woodblock building, and they said, well, they're looking for some housing components with that woodblock, so possibly there's something they could work with us on this and with that at the same time. So she's going to work out a couple different proposals, and get back to us in the next week or so.
That's great.
Awesome.
That is great.
Thank you,
awesome.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. And Brian, you had something else?
It's just with
Then we'll
we
close
talked
public
about the small cities money. There was $130,000 in an account, but it's money that came through HUD and CBGB loans and grants long time ago, and it can only be used for very specific economic development purposes. We've been trying to get an answer. Can we use it to pay a salary of a new Briggs economic development person? But we ended up, I think, because that account only has $3,000 to $6,000 in it, so we obviously can't hire somebody for that. And it's economic development grant money, not tax. It's not village tax money. The person at HUD who somebody set up a conference call with me with twice retired.
Awesome.
So, and when I got a hold of the new person, she needed to know what grant number and year it was. Denise gave me a handful of folders tonight that are a whole bunch of different grants that are all part of it, and the years. New York State is
1994.
Well, there's 94, 97, 98,
Here's
99.
94.
Okay, so in
Only
2002.
because I was the trustee on the
right. I was
board.
gonna say you were in.
No, I know, but there's
Yeah.
well, so That's one of them, but there's a bunch of them that collectively make up that account. Some of those are handled by HUD, and some of them are handled by New York State now. After this woman retired, she would handle both for the village. So that is one of them, but then there's 5. So all go into that account.
All go into that account?
Yes, yeah.
That was the first one, I guess, that was specifically set up. The letter was July of 1994 that did that for the health center.
So that one is in this fund, but not as
memory.
much of it. The majority is
have
from
that memory.
the 98 and 2002 CBGB grants that were paid.
Actually, LaBerge wrote that grant in 1994.
And then, so.
And that would have gone to the Buffalo office at that time.
Yes, and that's where some of it will be, but some of that was transferred to New York State, in New York City, and then one of these accounts is still pre-2000 possibly, or 19. So, she retired.
Yeah.
So once I can actually call and give them the grant numbers and years, we will have an answer of what we can do with that money sitting there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, that was one.
All right, it's been a half hour. Does anyone else want to speak regarding the tax cap override, local law number 1 of 2018? All right, in that case, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing related to the local law number 1 of 2018.
Motion.
Ben?
Second.
Second, Vanessa. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. All right, we are on to old business, and again, we had 2 additions I'd mentioned in the beginning of the meeting. That the old business additions were the assessments that Andy was going to discuss procedures and parking updates also from Andy. So, Andy.
Okay. This is probably a good starting point. We can take one and pass that down. This is information from Office of Real Property Tax Services, and this is pertaining to the village, strike that, the town reassessment and the village assessing department. And the issue would come up with the town reassessment. Does the village need to act during a certain period of time if the board chooses to use the town reassessment numbers for purposes of the village assessment roll? I will tell you that the state, the Department of Taxation and Finance, as well as the county, have encouraged the village to consider using the reassessed values on the town roll for purposes of the values on the village assessment roll, for purposes of consistency. And the question came up, number one, can the village legally do that? The answer to that, of course, is yes. Under the real property tax law, the village has actually 2 options. One option is to maintain its assessing unit and to have the village assessor use the town assessed values as the basis for putting together the village assessment roll. You would maintain your village assessing unit, you'd maintain a village assessor, and you'd still prepare a village assessment roll, but you'd be utilizing the town values. Subject to the village assessor would still need to make adjustments where needed, but would be essentially using the town roll and the values on the town roll for purposes of creating a village roll. That's one option a village can have. The second option a village has is to terminate its assessing unit. There would not be a village assessor. This would need to be done through local law, subject to permissive referendum, and then the town takes over all of the assessing duties for the village. And so there are those 2 options. Obviously, the state and the county has been recommending that the village assessing unit utilize the reassessed values on the town roll for purposes of the village roll. What I've just handed out to you is information. This can be very confusing, and the reason it can be confusing is there are different schedules for the village assessment here as opposed to the town assessment here.
Okay.
So the first thing I've given you, this is from the Office of Real Property Tax Services, is your village assessment roll dates. So if you focus first on the valuation date and the taxable status date. For a village, that's January 1st. What that means is the property's condition and use as of January 1 sets its value. So that's the valuation date, and that's the taxable status date. Those values are then used to create a town tentative assessment roll, and that's issued by February 1st.
You mean village tentative
Strike
roll?
that.
Sorry.
Correct.
Okay.
The village tentative roll is issued by February 1st, and you went through this recently, and then you have your village assessment grievance day, and that's later in February.
Very busy
no later
evening.
than February 20th. And then the village final assessment roll is issued no later than April 1st. Now, and of course your fiscal year is June 1 to May 31, and that's why you're going through your budget season right now. You go to the second page, this is the town of Hoosick assessment roll dates. And so here, the town has a different fiscal year. It follows the calendar year. Don't look at the valuation date for purposes right now. Let's focus on the taxable status date.
Okay.
That's March 1st. Okay? And the tentative roll is issued by the town no later than May 1st. And their grievance day is later in May, no later than May 22nd. And the town issues its final assessment roll by July 1st. So you see the different dates. So what's going on right now is the town is going through its revaluation and issuing its tentative assessment roll. Now, they may have rolled this out and allowed you to meet with the town and go over your assessments. But the legal dates here are the town will issue its tentative assessment roll, will have its formal grievance day in May. That is for purposes of grieving your town assessment. And the assessment roll for fiscal year 2019.
For the town. Okay.
For the town. If you choose to grieve your new assessment for town valuation purposes, you need to do that in May, and that they'll issue their final roll by July 1st, and that'll be the roll for its 2019 fiscal year. The village has already gone through its assessment roll preparation and has adopted its final roll for the 18-19 fiscal year. It will be preparing its tentative roll in 2019 for the 2019-2020 village fiscal year. If the village board chooses to go the route of using the town assessment for purposes of its 2019 assessment roll, you do have until the day your tentative roll is issued, in discussing with Office of Taxation and Finance at the state, they recommend, if the board is going to do this and entertain using the town values, to do it no later than December 1, so that it's not too close. It's that if the village chooses to keep its assessing unit, keep its assessor, and simply use the town assessment roll values, that is done through mere resolution, and that can be done at preferably your November meeting, if you choose to do that, no later than your November meeting. So what the town is going through on their reassessment to issue their final roll by this July, which would be for their 2019 fiscal year, this board needs to consider whether it wants to utilize those new reassessed values that are going to be on the final town roll for its tentative roll to be issued in 2019 for its 2019-2020 fiscal year. So that's the procedure. I know there was some confusion about when does this board, if it chooses to do that, when does it need to act? It does not need to legally act now. It will need to legally act by the end of the year.
And I guess two questions
Yes.
to clarify. One, so basically when people pay their town taxes next, that will go up, village will not yet because of the difference in the DAP rate.
Not only
So
a change.
Yeah, right, but But I'm saying the town will go up if we're waiting through December here. There'll
Yeah.
be like a step almost.
You're gonna wait anyway.
Right.
Remember, you adopted your final roll.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying
There's gonna be a
yeah,
step. Yes.
But with that said, with the step, because our calendars are offset, will there be, for example, the first year where the payments end up being a little bit higher for Village and come down, or a little lower, then go up more because there's that 3 month or however many months between the end of their fiscal year and our difference?
No.
Does that impact this?
No.
It
No?
doesn't, and that's not an easy answer, because when you do the revaluation, as I'm sure you've heard, some people's values
Yeah.
go up, some people go down.
I just want to have you
Yeah.
clarify that was
That's
not right. There will not be a surprise there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, there's no legal requirement for the board to act now if you do choose to adopt the town values.
Okay.
Then there are some practical issues, of course, which is, once that town roll is final, that's used for the purposes of, as you say, your school taxes, and your county taxes. And so there are some practical issues. And the second thing is, while I've given you this, admittedly, this can be very confusing because of the different fiscal years and the different dates for
Overlaps.
evaluation purposes.
Yep.
And so, one of the concerns that the state and the county have, I won't call it concern, one of the issues they raised was, if people go to grieve
That's what I wanted to
the
say.
current reassessed values
Mhm.
at
That's
the
what I
town
wanted to say.
level, they may not understand that this has nothing to do with the village values and the village role. But if you chose to act sooner, then maybe, but the years just don't jive. You have finished your final assessment role for your fiscal year 18-19. That's
Mhm.
already done. That's, you've adopted your
Right.
role. So if people need to understand, for those that have properties in the village, that if you choose to grieve the reassessed values for town tax purposes, and the board ultimately chooses, if it does so, to use the town reassessed values for purposes of its 2019 assessment roll, you have every opportunity to grieve your village assessment during village grievance day, even though you've previously grieved that same value at the town level. Yes.
So if it changes at the town level, if the grievance goes through and changes, do they still have to do it with the village, or does the change retroactively go through to the village, assuming the village adopts?
So, let me understand the question.
Mhm.
If a property owner goes to grieve the town reassessment,
And they decide to
and they decide to lower it,
yes,
that lowered value will be on the final roll that the town issues in July.
will be on the final first roll that the village does, since the village roll is adopted after the town one.
There are two separate tax rolls right now, correct?
If we
Until
adopted it,
accept yes.
if we chose to adopt it,
Right?
You
What
grieve
you'd
it and
be
it goes
doing later
down,
in the
yes,
year
it carries
Yeah.
over.
is choosing to use what will amount to be the final
yeah,
town assessment roll
Which-
values
right.
to create your 2019 village assessment roll.
So if the town lowered it through the grievance process, it would affect the village one after
That is
that.
correct.
Thank you.
If they adopt in their final
Right.
roll.
If
Right.
If
Okay.
the property owner grieves the assessment, and the Board of Assessment Review agrees to lower the assessment, that lower assessment will be on the final town tax
Tax
roll.
roll. Now, if
Okay.
we terminate our assessor, then the rolls are one. If someone, we won't have a grievance night at that point.
Everything
because
is rolled into
the town, right.
That's correct.
Ben?
Did you say that that they are saying that we should?
Well,
And the only reason why I asked that question is because are they looking at it from a shared services type thing where town and village are supposed to start coming together and doing that? Is that why they're saying that?
We're not going to eliminate our assessor. If we choose to keep our assessment department, that's not shared services. Right?
What-
I mean,
But we are sharing them.
we're right. Well, you can't take that in consideration. The same person.
Well,
Right?
they want to eliminate a job.
I don't know that that
It would
factors into
technically
it.
eliminate a
I
job.
think this was
Also,
more
How much do we
for
pay for him here?
consistency's sake.
$9,000 a year.
Okay.
Because you could end
that
up,
sound
I
right?
mean, right now,
I know
it's the
it's
same person who's assessing the village and the town.
Right.
And
Right.
You
Yeah.
can get into a situation where it's a different assessor. And they may not agree on values. And so you may have one assessed value for town purposes and a different assessed value for village purposes. And that can get confusing.
That's very confusing.
And so from the state and the county perspective, they like that consistency. And I will tell you this, based on my research, it indicates about 75% of the villages statewide do use the town values.
Okay.
The other question I have, Andy, is you said that they told you that it has to be done by December, but there's nothing that prohibits us from doing it sooner than that, correct?
That's correct.
Because I saw correspondence from someone from Tax and Finance that said that we had to do it by May 1st, or it wouldn't allow the village residents to grieve their taxes for the 2019-20 tax season.
They must have been referring to the town schedule.
No, they weren't. No, believe me, they weren't.
That's weird.
And I had that conversation with the town assessor.
Right.
And that's what I read the correspondence myself. I mean, and it stated right in there it was the lady from New York State Tax and Finance, said that if we didn't adopt it by May 1st, that the village residents would not have the option. You'd have the option to grieve the town taxes because that grievance day is the 22nd of May in 2018. But if we didn't adopt it by May 1st, that it wouldn't allow us to grieve. And I don't understand the dates either, because this is confusing as heck.
Admitted.
But I guess my concern is based on that. Based on that information from the assessor and those people. I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't want to go ahead and if we're going to choose to accept to use the town tax rolls, which to me is kind of a no-brainer because to have two sets of rolls is
50 some years apart.
It's a nightmare. I mean, so I just want to make sure that's what I was told, but I don't. Again, that's
Yeah, and after I did see that email, so I followed up with Tax and Finance and spoke with Christina Ulmer, who's kind of leading this, and I did talk to her earlier, maybe yesterday. I think it was yesterday, because God bless her, she was on vacation last week. But we did speak yesterday, and she said, no, those are the dates. She's the one who told me to act no later than December 1, so that it's very clear when the tentative roll for the village for the 2019-20 fiscal year is put together.
I mean, two things. Procedurally, what has to be done in what order? Say we want to adopt it. Procedurally, what do we have to do?
As simple as preparing a resolution and adopting a resolution, and that resolution that gets forwarded to the town and the county and the state.
Could we, as soon as 2 weeks from now, adopt it?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, Andy, in your opinion, does adopting it possibly impact any other legal issues the village may have to encounter, deal with, or that could be down the pipe?
Number one, I don't see any.
Okay.
Number two, realize that what the real property tax law requires is that the village assessor will then use the town assessed values as the starting point. And in all likelihood, that will probably be the end point. But realize there's still different, that's why I gave you that sheet, there's different taxable status dates.
Right.
And so when the assessor, the village assessor is looking at it, they have to look at the properties as of the taxable status date for the village. And things can happen between the town taxable status date and the village. The property of a building could burn down, things like that. They will need to use the town values as the starting point, and as I said, more often than not, that will be the village value, but they do need to take a look at the property as of the taxable status date for the village.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hey, Mark. You as a village employee here, also having the hat on as town supervisor, I know you've always handled that admirably and totally appropriately. If you want to take off the code enforcement hat and put on town supervisor hat and sound off on anything, feel free.
Address for the record.
Because I know that you take that seriously, and you probably won't speak up on anything unless I say, hey, you want to. But If you want to, you certainly can.
I'm not gonna trump anything, I mean, what Andrew has said, I think is probably very
Very
accurate, and you guys are all seeing what I've been dealing with. It is confusing when you're talking about this stuff, because I think at the end of the day,
No, I just want to
you know, the difference is that we're still, the village taxpayers are still gonna be assessed, if you adopt the rule.
Mhm.
I mean, that's going to be the number for our village property taxes, you know, and so the only difference may be, and Andy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you still, you'll have another opportunity to grieve the village tax.
The village assessment,
Mhm.
absolutely.
At the end of the day,
In-
right?
in February.
Assessment At the end of the day,
Yeah.
you know, that's maybe the only thing you're gonna, you may gain out of this thing. And-
You will, yeah, absolutely, you'll gain that.
You know, but the chances are, you know, that will it change? I mean, you're gonna have the same, you know, it's been looked at, you're still gonna go through the process, I would assume, as a town. If you're grieving, you're gonna grieve right now for your town tax.
Right.
Mhm.
It's going to carry over to your village too, so, I mean, that part of it comes into the equation, that it's a village property, so I don't see where it would change in the end, but there may be a few that do.
All right.
Right,
There may
'cause-
be a few that do that for whatever reason, it's something that changed in the property between its taxable status dates.
All right.
That's the- but
If you had some catastrophic event or something like that, Andy,
That's correct.
okay.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
The only other thing I will mention is that I know the county is really high on going to the one, because I think there's only 2 villages that are left,
Isn't us in Nassau?
us in
In
Nassau.
Rensselaer County, yeah.
And they expect Nassau's gonna be going to the town.
Okay.
Also.
All right.
So they're kind of pushing for that because of their computers.
Yep. Okay. I don't see anything wrong with putting this on the agenda for the next meeting. So I'll make sure that when we have the agenda ready for the next meeting, it's out there and it's
Okay.
online, so people know that it's going to be discussed to bring that up.
Just, so if you do accept the town's assessment rule, if the town is involved in a suit in which there's a major reduction of assessed value in the village, that affects your budget. Because you will be operating off of their assessed valuation. So your village attorney will have to somehow always be in the loop for any time somebody makes a major grievance, perhaps at the end of McCaffrey Street or Liberty Street or any of those places.
I know what you're saying.
If they agree to a reduction, it affects the village and also the school. It has to, because you're all operating off the same one. So if there's any way you can stay in the loop, because whatever they agree to, you have to accept.
Well, having the town assessor and the village assessor being one person, I think we'll be in the loop.
You won't have a village assessor then.
Yes, we will.
Well, if we,
Yes, we will.
Technically,
Yes, we can. If we don't have to get rid of the village assessor. That's an option we have. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy.
You know, that's correct. This would be,
But you would be ending up creating 2 different assessment roles, because if you keep the village assessor, you'll keep the grievance board, because you're keeping your assessment.
what the village board is considering is maintaining the village assessor and have the village assessor still prepare the village roll, but look to the town values as the basis for.
As
the
our
But they'll still be able to grieve here.
Yeah, that's not going to change.
Yes.
What that does is it creates, what you have is an appointed grievance board at the town versus an elected grievance board here, because it's the village board. So what you're doing is creating, over time, 2 different assessment roles again.
Yeah, I was under the impression from Tony and from what you had said that when we adopt the towns, they work in tandem, that if someone grieves at the town, it also is going to roll over to village because they're the same role.
It'll roll over to the village because the resolution that you'll be considering.
Passing will include that.
Well,
but they can still grieve it.
Right.
Okay.
Let's take it instead.
Okay.
The chances of getting a favorable decision not from the town or from the town and not from the village are pretty slim.
Are slim. So
Possible, but
Right.
Yeah.
legally, understand.
Okay.
This doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're adopting wholesale the town role.
Right.
You are still creating a village role, but using the assessed value from the town role to create the village role.
And we
So
still
we
handle
have
grievance.
Right,
Unless
but
we got rid of the assessor.
So that means that somebody could technically right, since you adopted the towns, if you keep that unit, sue the village.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Sure.
You're still gonna have.
Independent of the town.
You have that option every year. You have that option now.
But if you eliminate that, they only sue one place.
Well, that's something that the board can consider going forward if you
All
want
right.
to. That's the other option the village has, is to discontinue.
I'll follow up with you on that, Andy, because
Yes,
that's
assessor,
yeah.
and
All right.
a little bit more involved procedure, that's a local law, that's.
All right.
So we're gonna put that on the agenda for the.
Yeah, put that on the agenda. All right, the last bit of old business is the parking update, and then we'll move to the new business. And thank you for your patience here and hanging out. What's the parking update situation?
The parking update is, I have researched the state law on the ability to restrict parking on village streets. The vehicle and traffic law does allow the village to regulate parking on village streets, but not with respect to particular patrons of, like, limited to business patrons only. The village traffic law actually allows that only in situations where there's a private parking lot, and then those lots can be restricted to particular tenants or business patrons. If it's a public street, you are still allowed to regulate parking on that street, but it is done more so through time limitation. So generally, in business districts, you'll often see parking signs saying limited to 30 minutes, limited to an hour. And that's enforceable, and that's allowable under the vehicle and traffic law, and that can be enforced by your village police department.
Okay.
But the law does not allow the village on a public street to limit the parking to a particular type of park or business only. You can in a private lot, but you can't on a public street. So
2-hour parking
that's-
would be appropriate.
That's
Is
an
that
option
sufficient time
the
for
board
your
to
business?
2 hour
consider.
would be appropriate. yeah.
What I've done
Okay.
is draft the local
Okay.
law. I did send it to the mayor just in draft form. Some things for the board to consider is the section of a particular street, what side, what's the hours during the day. Could be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yep.
Could be Monday to Friday, could be Monday to Saturday.
Okay.
No restrictions on Sunday, and what the actual restrictions are, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. These are things for the board to consider.
7:30.
The next thing to consider is what particular streets, because as a practical matter, if the
Right.
signs go up on one street that has businesses, you may hear from other businesses that say that. So one of the things for the board to consider is there a business section of the village
Yes, there is,
Where-
and I'm not in it.
where it
It ends at Blue Flame.
where
It ends wherever we put up
Oh.
the signs.
where it would be appropriate to limit that to
Okay.
promote business parking during certain
Alright.
periods of the day, so.
Okay.
those are
Andy,
some
can we
things
create
to
business
consider.
zones? So, for example, Terry, we have a lot of people who do their hairdressers and hairstylists that operate either in neighborhoods. They may not be in. Can we create a business zone where those are so they can have the time parking?
Well,
to
what
be
you
fair?
do, what I drafted is you can have a local law that literally will list out the street
Okay,
and the north and south, east and west side.
so that's
Each-
what that all means. Is okay.
That's
Need to
correct.
figure
You
out
can
which
identify
other
the
Well,
locations would
in
be
this
better.
particular situation, there's like from the edge of one part of my property, I only want it to go to the other end of it. It doesn't need to go to all the way to the end of the street. I'm just looking for the width of my business.
Well, that's correct, and others may be looking for whatever
Right.
purpose, but that's
Right,
up to
right.
the board on what sections of
You should
street,
ask
what
Andy.
streets, so. That would be the mechanism to do it, I would recommend is think about those time frames, days, things like that.
So Andy, in the case of, can we do it in this case for Terry's location of her business, and then if this preempts other people to come forward, other business owners come forward, and then add that street on at a addition another time, rather than
Sure.
going and trying to, rather than dragging this out, because we have to do more research and everything else, other than the time limits and time restrictions.
All right.
I wonder if we could get you taken care of. Rather
But this
than
would be a
pushing-
local law, so we have to have the public hearing.
Right.
And then the following meeting, we would adopt it.
Correct.
So
If
we
you
should
give
get
me
this.
that information, I can finish the proposed local law, that could be
Okay.
introduced at the meeting in 2 weeks, and you can set your public hearing.
All right.
I mean, I wouldn't mind requesting if, when we have that meeting, anybody that would be interested to at least identify them in the law. So is that what you're saying, Bobby? You just have.
Are you saying
open-ended?
flexibility if more people
Right.
come in after we say
Right,
it?
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, why
This would be
look.
like the trial run.
Okay.
People see it.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying.
Yeah.
You know,
Might wanna come
yeah, I hate to you know beat a dead horse, but if we have to, if it comes
Yeah.
up again and again, we'd have to address them each case. But if we only have, you know, right now we only have one business owner who needs this stipulation, we only deal with that and deal with them one at a time. You know?
Right.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, and honestly, I'd be fine with it. For example, north side of Elm Street from Church to First Street, which just gives the whole stretch.
Well, yeah, except for that those are residential houses next to me.
Right, you can't do that, yeah, because they're in a rental
As long,
properties.
as long as it's
Right.
just
Hey, I
attached
live-
my property gives me two,
Right.
I don't
I
care.
live somewhere where I had to go move my truck every 2 hours.
Ugh.
And you know what? I
Ugh.
dealt with it.
All right.
I-
All right.
Well, and the other,
Thank you,
I just have
Andy.
a question related to that. If
Yeah.
you need a local law to enact those kinds of signs, was there a law enacted for Wilder Avenue when you
Yes.
switched?
Oh,
No, there wasn't.
I mean when the enforcement,
When it went from
the signs
parking
changed.
between signs to no parking.
I
That
was
an
under
update to an
the
existing law, correct? The signs that said between signs were incorrect. There was a law that had been passed for no parking.
I was
Those
under the
signs were in
impression
error.
that the original signage was wrong as it corresponded to the law, and that's why it
Yes.
got changed. That was my impression of that.
Well, I've never been given an impression, that's why I'm asking.
I will get you that local law.
Well, and I'd also like to know what we're gonna do about it, because if is it the south side of Wilder all the way up?
Which one is it?
Including Upper Wilder?
Upper Wilder, it's the north side.
Okay, well, my next question is because we require off-street parking, and people are choosing not to use their off-street parking, is that going to be enforced?
It sounds like we're going to have to look at that law carefully, and then not just about making sure the signs are right, but also enforcing it properly, and put that on the radar of the police. Yeah, thank you. All right, our final item, new business. Brandy is here. I gave you guys a copy of the paperclip of the 3 bills, and on top, I put a spreadsheet together that explains how the water bills relate. The basic situation is Brandy purchased this house with the intent of refabbing it and getting it in livable condition.
I had a short sale.
Okay.
I did, as you know, I tried to come to the board, or to yourself again.
Right.
Prior to the buying of this property.
Yep.
To get this taken
It was
care of.
just after our last meeting, which is why we're hearing about it.
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Found out there was a water bill.
Cool.
Wanted to know why, so I reached out. And when I finally got them, actually the names on here are incorrect. Angel Cole has owned it in a very long time. HSB has owned it at this time. Either way, that being said, the water was shut off in this building. It was weatherized. Lines were cut inside the building. I took pictures. So I was looking for grievance to get this waived. It's $1,600.
So on the spreadsheet underneath Bill 1, I have a full bill total, and that's the 3 bills added up. And I have a breakdown. This was a house that had no meter, and
There's a meter there, it just wasn't hooked up, or
Okay.
somebody took it off.
It was weatherized, they cut
Yeah.
it off
They
and
cut-
weatherized it.
it was one of those situations where the village knew the meter either wasn't there, wasn't working properly, and was not allowed in to fix it. The standard approach for that is a $250 fine, which is what appears on the second bill and the third bill. Because there's no meter, there's a generic, I think, usage number that's applied to it that is added to the water and the sewer number. And then the percent interest, which is wow, the 3 bills ended up adding up to the 16, what is it, 30 something? 50.
65. Well, can I just say I'm glad you guys are investing in a property in, especially I live around the corner, and second ward.
Go to
Yes.
Waterworks.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're right there. I know where. Yeah, you're out. You know, and I.
In that blue house that looks terrible.
Right. And
That's right.
Yes, and Tanner's been talking about working on it a lot too. He's very excited about it. But with that said, I am perfectly fine wiping the entire amount here because you're investing in a property that otherwise would continue to deteriorate and degrade the look of our village. I don't know if we can also, can we wipe the bond amount is the problem.
That's the well.
That's
Here's
a
the
different-
point, because the situation sucks, and normally the banks will pick this up, and this bank
And they
didn't.
wouldn't.
Right.
They just refused to do it.
Well,
So
it was sold multiple times and ended up
Right.
to a realtor, and the realtor absolutely said no, flat out, gave me a flat rate. I ended up paying the $1,000 towards the county, right, it was the county.
Mhm.
And then had the water bill, which I tried to get fixed prior to the purchase of the home.
yeah.
And it just couldn't happen because it was such a short sale. And he'll tell you, I reached out, I don't know, a few times, right? Tried to get
Yep.
a resolution. I reached out to Jim as well and had him come over
Yep.
to say, hey.
And
call
Jim's
me
looked it
this
over and talked it through. So there's a lot of possibilities. It's unfortunate that both the village and obviously you as the owner are in this situation. Whatever we choose to do here could be sort of a precedent-setting thing. So we need to keep that in mind. That being said, there's no way she should be paying the full water bill, in my opinion. And when I did the breakdown of costs on the bottom, that so we could sort of discuss what things would make sense being taken out and being left in and so on as you want to decide it. In my mind, the $500 water meter fine should just be completely out.
Agreed.
And that would drop at 500. I think for me the best case scenario is that the water bond, sewer bonds stay on, and that ends up being 408 approximately.
40804.
Which would waive the water usage, the sewer usage, the refuse, the late fees, and the meter fine. But I'm open to what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, there's no water, there's no sewer.
Right.
Somebody even stole the garbage cans.
Awesome.
I agree, Rob.
I don't know.
Just the
They're not
bonds.
there.
Yeah, I know when it comes to the bonds, and the reason I mention those is I know unless the pipe is dug up and cut at the main legally,
It's
oh no, that's to be cut like under the street at the main.
Oh, okay.
That I know legally we've gone through that.
Yep.
That even if the house has been
And that's what we've done in the past. Is
demolished,
we've kept the
right.
bonds and forgiven everything else in
yeah,
the scenarios.
that's the only reason I bring that up, and I also want to say thank you for buying that.
Yeah.
And you're a resident here, and you're what's
Yeah.
that?
Water tower has to be dug up anyway.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of it.
Apparently, somebody broke it.
Awesome.
And again, thank you for buying it. I'm.
Do you have any free material you want to send my way to fix it? I will take it.
We'll give her
So-
knock off 1200 and
If-
561.
If we left the water and sewer bond, we'd take off 1205.61 and we'd leave it at 408.04. That would cover just the water bond and sewer bonds out.
Right, no late fees,
No water usage, sewer.
No water usage, no sewer usage, no refuse, no late fees, no meter fine. It would
It
just
would
be the
Right,
bonds.
the 203.56 and the 204.48, and that would be it.
What are your thoughts? I
How
guess.
do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that as long as we make sure that it goes forward because the water is not going to be turned on for quite a while.
Well, you shouldn't be getting anything but a bond or a
It's
water
inhabitable
or
right
sewer
now,
bond,
too,
right?
so
Right,
it's inhabitable,
right.
so.
Well, if the water's shut off, you're not gonna get a bill at this point.
Well, the
because-
bond-
Just the bonds, just the bonds, but nothing else.
Right.
You pay a bond.
Yes.
But you're not gonna pay a water bill.
Correct.
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 And they turn it back on.
Until the village turns it back on, correct.
But because those are connected to both mains, we have to charge the bond.
Is the
It
refuse?
wouldn't matter.
The refuse would be
How
charged.
sitting there.
Oh,
Yeah.
The bond's the bond.
Right,
Well,
and that's-
not necessarily during this
Going
time, but going
forward.
forward.
And that's part of it.
Going forward, the refuse would be charged as well because you'd be using the garbage cans, assuming we get you garbage cans.
There is none. I don't know where they are. They've
Well,
Okay.
I have to get those from.
We can-
Well,
we- we'll-
that's what's going to have to get all the
Yeah.
waste management and get you a couple.
Yeah, you need them right away.
All
Can
right.
we get some pink ones?
If that's what the board's decision, then I just need a motion for
I
that.
don't know why it's weird.
I'll make a motion that we reduce whatever this bill number is, or
The three bills.
the three
down.
bills down to 408.04, reduced from 1653.65.
All right.
Second.
Give that to Brian. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I
Okay.
want to thank you guys for thinking about this for future ones too, because there's a lot of them out there.
No, thank you, and we're glad to see you taking the leap into getting this
Like
back
Brian said,
up and
reiterate,
going.
thank
So
you for
thank
doing
you.
it.
Yeah.
We don't need another zombie property. We
All
have
right.
enough of those to deal with.
I'll say thank you 100
Yeah,
times.
say one more time.
All right. In that case, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Ben, second.
Second.
Kevin, All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, trustees, for your first meeting.
Congrats.